7 signs he's emotionally unavailable. Hey, my name's Clayton Olson, and I'm a relationship coach who helps individuals come into greater integrity with themselves, come from a place of self-empowerment and authenticity so that you can create long-lasting love. The reason I'm talking about emotionally unavailable people, specifically emotionally unavailable men, is because I believe that a lot of the narratives, when I talk to women who are consistently experiencing difficult relationship challenges, frustrating dating experiences, and eventually become bitter about love and bitter about men, is because they're spending too much time in the wrong relationships. And ultimately, over time, that degrades our trust in life, that degrades our trust in our own perceptions. And so this video is, in some ways, there might be some of these that I name that are really obvious. Some of them might be a little bit more subtle. And there's always exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, if you're in the situation and you're curious about what the guy you're dating is emotionally unavailable, this is something to get curious about if you see one of these come up that feels like it applies to you. So I'm going to rip through these. There's 7 of them. Some of them I'm going to spend a little bit more time on than others. And if you have any questions or comments or want to share your experience, please comment below this video. So the first sign that he's emotionally unavailable is that he is fresh out of a breakup. Now, what does that mean, fresh out of a breakup, in terms of timing? I think it's less about the time, and it's more about where he is in terms of his orientation towards his heart and his orientation towards his new self. This can be a particularly confusing situation because often when I see women interacting with a guy who's fresh out of a breakup, he seems emotionally available. Maybe there's tears, maybe there is this outpouring of love and connection. But what the woman fails to realize is that oftentimes she's a placeholder where he is in some ways using her so that he doesn't have to face himself, doesn't have to face being alone. And it's not to say that the emotions aren't real, that the connection isn't real, but he is most likely incapable of actually being in anything long-term and monogamous or committed. It's best in this scenario to let him go, simply because if he doesn't have a solid image of himself that he's been able to establish or recreate after his last relationship, it's only going to cause problems if you do get into a relationship with him. So a good period where this man can come back to himself, he can find himself again, he can get on his own 2 feet and source his happiness internally rather than through connection, I think is a prerequisite for him being ready in a relationship. The second sign he's emotionally unavailable is that he's lost his job or there's some type of transition in his career. Men are very much tied deeply to their purpose and their ability to provide in relationship. Men source a lot of value from their ability to make money, to be stable, secure, and provide a foundation for the feminine. When a man loses his job, this really rocks his foundation to the core. It affects his worthiness and it affects his focus and his capacity to be able to give in other areas. So if the guy is going through a job transition or he just lost his job, more than likely that's going to be a priority in his life, not your connection with him. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Pull back your expectations. It might be best for you guys to be friends and just kind of be in touch until he gets his life together. And it also, I just want to point this out, as I go through these, your ability to walk away from these situations, your ability to honor yourself and give yourself to areas or territories that are fertile, that there's an opportunity for people to be on the same page, you and this man. Your ability to say no to things that aren't that position you and allow you to believe in yourself as a high value woman. So the next one is someone important just died in his life. Now, death impacts everybody differently. And a death in the family can have him cracked open emotionally. A death with friends can have him cracked open emotionally. And again, just like the breakup, you might confuse his emotionality with it being directed towards you and because of you. And there might be this kind of broken bird syndrome where you're seeing this place where you can support him. And he might even be not only receptive to your support, but actually requesting your support. The confusion here is if you start mistaking that for something that's more than platonic or something that actually has legs to turn into a committed relationship. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but what I'm saying is there is a massive release in his life and new orientation that may be occurring. His identity may be shifting as a result of the death. If the man lost his father or mother, who he is in relation to himself, in relationship to the world, could very well be changing, and who he ends up as and how he sees himself on the other side of this once he's healed might be that he needs to be single for a while and not in a relationship. So that's another one to keep your eye out for. Number 4, he's moving. I see this happen. People believe in the long distance nature of a relationship, and although in some cases it can work, if he's moving, this is a recipe for heartbreak, regardless of how much of a connection you have with him. I've seen this happen in certain scenarios where, because there's this external obstacle, this ability, or not necessarily an ability, but a reason that he's leaving, there's this boundary around the timing of the relationship. The relationship will end at some point. And because of that, I've seen guys actually step more fully into connection because they know that they're leaving, so they have nothing to lose. And they've got this kind of fail-safe there that allows them to step in fully and open up their heart because that they know they're leaving. Men tend to get themselves in the situation more so than women. And it can be almost like a Romeo and Juliet scenario where there's this outside obstacle that's stopping the two of you from being together because he's moving. I think this can be confusing for women. This can be also confusing for guys if you're dating a woman who's leaving. But just realize that if a guy is moving, his priorities are going to be landing in the new city, in the new country, wherever he is, establishing a social circle, recreating his identity to understand how to move through the environment. And it's not going to be on you. So another red flag, he's moving. The next one, he's married. Now, this might seem obvious, right? If a guy's married, he's not going to be emotionally available. Well, this situation, there's so much gray in this. And I'm not condoning infidelity. But what I am saying is that I've seen this situation happen. People fall in love. They're in a sexless marriage. And suddenly there's somebody else that provides something that's missing. And the emotions can be very real. They can be very validating. They can feel authentic. But with this type of constraint, this external constraint where somebody has a contract with somebody else, you're just setting yourself up for pain to be involved with someone that's married. And that's not even mentioning that you could possibly be in the third wheel in a marriage, and who knows how the other person's going to react. You could be putting yourself in a dangerous situation. So messing around with married people, being involved with married people, it happens. And my advice is to stay away from that and honor somebody else's union. The next one is he's traveling or on vacation. This does happen. People meet traveling, they fall in love, they stay in touch, and they end up making something work later on. It's romantic. It can be a really powerful emotional experience. The invitation here is to make sure that your expectations are set in reality, though, and realize that the logistical challenge of falling in love and hoping that the fling or the romantic connection that you have while traveling will turn into more. It might be a far cry from a real relationship. And so it's not to say don't get involved in these kinds of connections, because they can be healing, they can be really powerful. But oftentimes the connection that you have with somebody when you're traveling, both of you are in a different state of mind. You're in a different state of openness. You're both outside of your environment. And when you go back into your environments, it's almost like the narrative of your previous life or your current life kicks back in again, and other priorities take front and center, and you're left with just the fleeting memory of what was. And oftentimes those relationships are not the same. And last but not least, the last sign that he's emotionally unavailable is that he has told you straight up that he is emotionally unavailable. If a man says, I am emotionally unavailable, or I'm looking for something casual, or I'm just not ready, or it's not you, it's me, I don't see myself getting into a relationship anytime soon, that means that he's not going to be in a relationship. If a man is going to be that direct with you, believe him. Believe him and trust him when he says that. And you trying to change him, you being the one to flip him, into this emotionally available man, there's something that I see this happen so many times. I see this happen with guys too, where they're trying to win somebody over, or a woman trying to win a guy over, because there's a certain sense of significance that can come when you are the one that has changed the person or proven that you are special enough in their life to have cracked open their heart. It can be validating. It's really dangerous, because if we're getting our external validation from whether or not we can get somebody to love us, we're in some ways giving them the power to our value. So if you find yourself in this situation, check yourself and come into sober contact with reality and trust that this man knows himself enough and that he's not lying to you, that if he's emotionally unavailable and he says so, he is. To do anything other than that is to actually not believe him and not trust him. So then I would ask, why are you chasing a man that you're not trusting? And if he doesn't know himself and you think he's confused, then why are you wanting to get tied up in a relationship with a confused man who doesn't know himself well enough to say something just off the cuff like that? So those are the 7 signs he's emotionally unavailable. If you are a woman and you are wanting to increase your relationship IQ and dive into the deeper identity level work that is required to be relationship ready, to become the one so that you can attract the one, I've got a free webinar that I'm putting on with my fellow teaching partner, Jack Butler. It's in the link below this video in the description. Go ahead and click that link, sign up for a time that works for you, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.